right. Well, I will officially call the Board of Selectmen special meeting for Monday, March 10th to order. I want to thank all the board for their input, thank the staff for being here and the public. All rise, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll begin this evening with public audience. Is there anyone who'd like to address the board? Yes. Wait, let me look. Oh, yeah.
Someone in the back?
Joan Coke,
No?
26.
You said that. I didn't say that.
It's on the record, John.
Okay, I'll move over. Okay.
Paying for these lunches.
I ate before I came.
Good to see you too, Robert.
The meeting is officially called to order, and we do have someone ready to speak.
I am ready to speak.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Joan Coke, 26 Richmond Drive. As a taxpayer, I am concerned with the political priorities of this board over the necessities of the residents. A professional town manager would never include a private organization, the Main Street Partnership, in a town budget. The $50,000 allocated to Main Street Partnership should be allocated to the police department, adding one officer and part-time records clerk so the community can be served. A community must have a police department with enough resources to protect the residents and serve the courts. The Newtown massacre has shown that a police officer is needed in the schools as a valuable resource. This is more important than books on bike and thousands of dollars for more money for economic development. With a $225,000 shortfall in the Simsbury Farms funds, this board should make the administrator of the budget accountable. The taxpayer should not have to subsidize a golf course that is used by more non-residents than residents. Why is golf more important than police? The budget that is presented is a political budget and a waste of taxpayers' money. Simsbury taxpayers can no longer approve a politically motivated budget. The most important study that is not included in the budget is a study on the need for a professional management for Simsbury. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Robert Calishman, Simsbury. Don't run the clock yet.
I hope you'll stop right there.
That's
why I said no, I hope you're just
Very special meeting. This is the happy club.
Our minds work in the same direction.
I was just repeating what Mrs. Kalishman said, so I don't want to in trouble.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
Nothing would surprise me.
Thank you. Thank you.
One for the deaf.
You were surprisingly positive during the budget season.
You like that?
That's the first page. And this is the second page.
Wait till I get to my next one.
Cheryl Cook Esquire.
Thank you.
There's one. And you get a copy. Two.
Thank you.
That's the second page.
Oh, that's super.
Okay.
We all have different things. Same.
This is for you.
Thanks, sir.
And you get a second
I
page.
could read it without my glasses.
And you're special
Oh, I get a third one?
in the sense that I did a draft with your name on it, so
Oh, good.
I'll give you the draft.
Thank you.
Does this have the
Now-
answers to?
Let me go over and take care of how to get her in town. Mr. Payne. And this is your second page.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Selectmen Hvac. This is-
Thank you.
And this is your second page.
Thank you.
That's the second
Got it.
page. Okay.
Hot warm in here.
Now you can run your clock.
Well, it's 20 of 6, so I just want to let you know we haven't put any time on the clock, Mr. Kalishman. So thank you for your comment.
What after you had your meeting, and we had the budget meeting, I met various people, and they inquired as to what was going on. One in particular, my wife and I dropped by Nordstrom's, and there's a cosmetic lady that works at the Lancome counter. I'll give her a plug. And she lives in Glastonbury, but she owns a condominium in Simsbury, and she pays taxes on her condominium to Simsbury. And when I spoke to her, and I mentioned $8,000 for a book, she couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe that we had people that we elected that were going to wanted $8,000 to write a bike book. Now, I understand why it's done, and if I can recall, when my friend Steve Mitchell stood up here and took out his wallet, and he said the bicycles are going to, meaning by the wallet was, they're going to bring a lot of money to Simsbury. To my knowledge, it hasn't brought one nickel. We're just being taken on a more or less a ride to more or less invest $8,000, which is a waste. Then we go to the zoning regulation that I mentioned in my $25,000 for a study, another study. How many times do we have to study before we get it right? And we never get it right. And we had a study just recently with the Hartford that we kicked in, I think, $5,000 or $10,000 along with their study. Hiram Peck ran it, and we run study after study after study. And Mr. Peck is starting to sound like Jerry Toner and Dave Ryan. Jerry Toner with Parks and Rec, Dave Ryan with the Performing Arts. Next year we're going to do better. Just give us the money this year. Next year we're going to do better. Just give us the money this year. And each year they run with a deficit. They come back and they say they're going to have profit the following year, and it repeats itself. We do another deficit. And that's all it is. And now we have another one to add to the clique. Pretty soon they'll be able to play bridge. We have one more. We have Mr. Peck. He comes to the thing now, and his last remark was, after this study is done, we're having, there's 42 people moving to town. Well, I'm here to assure you there's not 42 people coming to town, and he can do all the studies he wants, and the tax base is going to be with the residents. It's not going to be with businesses. It's not going to be with manufacturing. You're going through the same thing that West Hartford went through for years. They were always promised by the liberals, we're going to make it more on our industrial taxes. They never made it. They're still, in fact, they're in serious trouble. Now, we go to another one, leaf collection. We live in the country, and we're having a leaf collection. When all the cities, West Hartford, Plainville, you go to all the cities, they've all cut their leaf collections. They've cut it out. If you want leaf collections, put it out with the trash. And if you have to pay for it extra, you pay for it extra. I'm not trying to make any extra work for anybody. Now, the most important thing, and one member picked up on it, but not entirely. One member decided, we'll bite the bullet and we'll get it's better to pay now, like the commercial, either pay now or pay later. And he says, maybe it's better to pay now. We'll get a new cruiser for the police department and we'll save a few bucks. Because if we repair it, it's probably going to cost us more to repair it than it will to buy a new cruiser. So he jumped on board with that. But getting back to, we need an additional police officer. Stop kidding yourself. On one hand, you tell us we're going to get better and bigger. The next hand, you tell us that we need community care to look out the people that have addictions and problems and whatever. And then you tell us we don't need public safety. We need one additional public safety officer for all the people, not for just the schools, but for everybody that lives in town. We need additional officer. Let me tell you why. Yesterday, Joan and I went looking for Gristmill Road because we were looking for the marijuana facility. and I took a right onto Grist Mill Road from West Street, and I go down maybe 50 feet, and I'm on Miller Way. I'm looking around and saying, where's Grist Mill Road? And I go all the way up. I'm still on Miller Way. Then finally I look where I can't go any further. The only thing I have left is to go left, and I see two signs looking me in the eye. Private property. When you see a sign, private property, you usually say, they're polite people, they don't want to say keep out, but they're saying private property, this is their property, they don't want you in there. So I didn't go up in there, and I still don't know where that facility is. But I do know one thing that I'm going to add to your dilemma, is that right next to that marijuana factory, they're making explosives. And if the type of explosive they're making, and I'm knowledgeable about explosives, is a detonator, detonators have black powder. Black powder is very versatile. If the temperature changes, or you change, you're going to blow something up. Plus the fact, if you have somebody come out of that marijuana factory and he's high, and he walks around into the explosive section, and he blows somebody up, it's serious. And that's why I say we're getting into serious stuff. Plus the fact that if you have a rookie, and the rookie's told to go to Grist Mill Road, guaranteed when he gets there, he's not going to see Grist Mill Road. It's Miller's Way and it's private property. There's no Grist Mill Road that goes up into that private property, but it's listed as Grist Mill Road on the permits and everything. And in fact, the Secretary of State has the permit, and it's listed as capital property and Curaleaf. Those are the two things. So, getting back, the cost to add an additional policeman. Stop monkeying around and stop trying to do mirrors with a half or a quarter or what. Let's get a full-time police officer, and let's add them to the force, because you're going to need them. You're going to have difficulty with this new facility.
You could summarize, Mr. Kelchman?
I will.
It's been over
So
5 minutes.
what I'm asking is that on the handout sheets that I gave you, would you please look at them and consider the frivolous decision, $8,000 for a bike book? Who does that benefit? We don't even know who it benefits. $25,000 for another zoning regulation. They should have been down years. In fact, we have zoning regulations already. Let me tell you that much. You're just updating them. $30,000, here's another boondoggle, $30,000 economic development study. Who's it going to? A couple political hacks, and in particular, Mark Denham. He's there, he's serving, he's political. He's 100% political. And why should I take my tax dollar, or anybody's tax dollar, and give it to a political entity that's going to use it again? And then you have $30,000 going to him for a study. Another study. We had charrette, now another study.
Okay, it's been 10 minutes, Mr. Kelchman.
Okay, thank you very much
Thank you for your comment.
for letting me take your time, but I assure you, it's very, very important, and a lot of real
People appreciate it.
things.
Thank you.
have to be cut out
Thank you
of
for,
the budget.
thank you. Anyone else who'd like to address
Police
the board?
department, you know.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to address the board? Okay, thank you all for your comments. We'll move now to the next item on our agenda, which is the overview of the budget. Just want to comment some of the things that are not in the budget, just since we heard earlier in the audience. There was some bike program from the library that's not in the budget. It's not recommended for funding. The zoning regulations are not in the budget before you. The economic development study is in the budget to do the task force and the marketing study. And the 12,000 leaf collection is in the budget, and the additional officer is being proposed on our wish list. So just to review those items. So if think we'll start, I just want to thank everybody for their comments, and we had a very good discussion on Friday night, and good input from our staff and our department heads. I believe where we left is a number of items that the board wished to take a look at again, and directed that I come back with some funding levels. We also talked about staying at the 1.98% budget with the discussions to be had on Wednesday night with the Board of Finance on having the Board of Ed contribute to the officer position. So the budget before you that's being recommended does include the full-time officer. We never cut that. It's a vacancy that we were postponing filling, and the budget that was presented earlier does include full funding of that officer. Sean just handed out, and Tom, a list, based on the comments at the budget workshop. The police records clerk would be restored beginning January 1st for $9,500. The custodian driver, DPW, would also be restored at $20,000 again to begin January 1st as full-time or earlier with the funds. Main Street was increased by $5,000. The communications specialist was increased by $2,500. The Economic Development Commission was increased by $5,000. This is a $42,000 change with a $2,000 offset, as you saw there from the advertising budget. We did go back again. Staff said they were comfortable with the amount, but we really don't know how many advertisements we're going to have to advertise, and we're only going to advertise after discussions the position and then refer back to the website where the description is. So we're actually cutting the cost of the advertising. Not perfect, we're not going to list the full job description, but that job description is on our website. So we took a look at some savings on that line item. So are there any questions, comments, anything we missed, any additional changes?
That brings the advertising down to 5,000?
Yes,
That was from
it does.
75?
Yes.
Okay.
And the communication specialist, just humor me for a second and review how much we have on that now, if we're,
It doesn't really add a lot. We did add the 7,000 from the EDC line item. We moved that.
okay.
There was 8,000 in the EDC line item, and
So there was
If I
seven,
may, we start with 15,000 as a base.
Right.
You guys need 7,000.
Okay.
This is to 22,000.
and this would
This
add,
would take us to 24,000.
okay. Wasn't sure what the base was when we started, thank
same
you.
as last year. So
Okay, perfect. Yep.
And how many hours then approximately? I mean, is that,
Right now, that will allow probably for some more hours than we have right now,
Okay.
which will be
so
good.
technically part-time right now, so.
Part-time, it's less than part-time now. It's 15,000. It doesn't get you, it gets you like a quarter time. The additional funds may get you to part-time.
Part-time, okay.
But what we're theoretically moving towards is trying to fund that full-time to help with the website work that we're talking about, all the different communication that's come up in the last year.
Exactly. I think what we heard from the Technology Task Force and the Economic Development Commission and this board, that we want to increase communications to our residents, we want to make sure we get more information out. The Board of Ed does have a staff person that monitors that on a daily basis, so we do the best we can and we staff it as much as we can, but it's not staffed enough to allow us to do what we want to do. So this will allow us to add some more time, work with the commissions, and we'll have a sense, we'll monitor it and see, is it working, do we need more time, how are things working, and then we can always revisit it as we go on.
So this isn't really a new position?
No.
This is a position that already
That's
exists?
correct.
We're just adding to
We
it?
just found that, there aren't enough hours to get and accomplish what everybody wants to accomplish, which is a good thing, I mean.
Yeah, well,
Can I ask for clarification, do you mind?
Yes, Chief.
I missed what, 9,500 you said?
So the board wanted to fund it full-time, but couldn't find the full 22,000 beginning July 1st. So they allocated 9,500 to that one item. So it could be funded halfway through the fiscal year at the level that you want, or smaller amounts up throughout the year. I know it's not what the chief asked for. And it's not, I think none of the items on the list we clipped everybody and try to restore as much as we could. So it doesn't bring you up to full, you're about $10,000 short of that position to fund it at the level that it's funded now.
I mean, yeah, if I could just add on, Mary, I mean, none of these are actually funding fully anything that anybody asked for, right? But we're trying to make sure is that collectively, we get you that position, we get Tom Roy his position, because those are needs, not wants. And if we're gonna be able to do that for the town, we needed to be a little creative in terms, I think, of timing to get in there, but, and I can't speak for the entire board. You know, these are positions that are gonna be there, and obviously we need to look at positions every year, but, I mean, I intend to continue to support those over the term and continue to look for ways to fund them in the future as well, so this is a way to start everybody off and to hopefully satisfy all the needs of the departments, and then hopefully we get a little more grandless growth, and then it's real easy for everybody next year. But I think is what we're trying to do here, right?
Yeah, I think Sean makes a good point. You know, I think what the board said at the workshop on Friday is that there were some priorities. I think putting the officer position in the budget was an important priority. We funded that 100%. We looked at cutting salt, and you know, we are making a big commitment by adding to that budget this year and adding some money to the maintenance budget. I think we'd like to see more money added to the maintenance budget, more money allocated to that records position, but I think in light of, I think, Sean, what you said, no one's getting funded 100% in this budget. And maybe that's the most fair thing, is that everybody's making some sacrifices and doing the best they can within the allocation that they're getting. That's where this budget is.
There's no priorities.
Are there other comments from the board, questions?
Hi, Mary.
The police department wants to speak, yes. Can you
Just
put your
one
name
other-
on the record, Brendan? That'd be great.
Yeah, just one other comment related to the part-time position. As you know, we've already been down 6 months
Yeah.
without this position, and it's created some challenges for us to provide the necessary documentation to customers, mainly the courts. And so by waiting another 6 months, it's going to create a bigger hole for us.
I don't think we're saying to wait 6 months. We're allocating $9,500. We'll continue to monitor it. So if you want to give more hours to your existing staff and then come back, we'll continue to monitor the situation. But in the budget that we have allocated, if we appropriate another $10,000 to that line item, the $10,000 has to come from somewhere else. I think that's what the board's recommending. But you make a good point. You're
Understand
exactly
that.
right. Everything, you can't do the same thing.
This is
with
a
less.
critical item.
I know.
Yeah, it's critical.
Everything is critical. I think everybody made a good point in a lot of the positions, that there are a lot of critical positions. And we don't expect the same level of services to be done with less. We understand that.
Okay.
Mary, can you give his name for the clerk?
Oh, Brendan, if you just give your name to the clerk.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Brendan Walsh, Chairman of the Police Commission.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Further questions, comments? So Sean, to revisit, these changes bring the board, oh, that's, sorry. Sean Kay, not Sean A, sorry. Sean Kay, so if you could just review where we are at this point with the changes that we made earlier and these changes, what does that do to the budget?
So with these changes, obviously we started at 1.98. If all these changes were implemented with no contributions from the Board of Ed, we'd be at 2.20%. But obviously the request that you have for the Board of Ed to fund half of the necessary position would be $40,000, which is equivalent to the $40,000, so we'd be back to 1.98%.
So if the board's comfortable with the list that we have, I'll be reporting to the Board of Finance on Wednesday that the Board of Selectmen where we are and what our budget includes and doesn't include, and then we'll be ready to vote on Monday, the 24th, at our Board of Selectmen.
Will we know what the Board of Ed's decision is by then?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which makes sense for the Board of Finance.
I mean, that makes sense, because we need to know if we're voting on 1.8 or if we're voting on 2.2, right? I mean, that's.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
I think what we need right now is just a consensus for where we want our budget to come in. I think the goal of the board was to not raise taxes this year, but to come in with a responsible budget. And we did add back some things. I think those we all felt were important and responsible. So we are higher than we started. Base was 1.5, but I think it includes a lot of the things that we thought were important to put back in. Any other questions?
I think this is the first time I've obviously done this process here. I think we had to make a lot of tough choices. There were things we all wanted that aren't in here, and I think this is, at the end of the day, what we feel we need to do for the town. And not to be lame, I'm okay with this. I think it's a very good effort by everybody. I'd like it to be different, but I also don't want our taxes to go up, and it is what it is. Thanks.
Question,
John A.
Sean? Yeah. Sean A to Sean K.
Through MG?
We just talked about our final percentage. What's the final number looking like? 18 point, what?
Give me 1 second. Final number would be, oh, sorry, you wanted at the 1.98 or at the 2.2, we were saying?
Either one.
So the 2.20% is an 751, 363.
Yep.
And again, where you are with the 1.98, 711, 363.
Yep. So the point I'll make again on that is, and I'll add 1 year back to that. So it looks like we're going to end up fiscal 14, we're talking about 15 here, at 18.6 million, so 18,633,112. So we're talking about less than $100,000 increase. If you go all the way back to 13 on an actual basis, we spent 18.8.
Yeah.
So again, while the percentages here are important to talk about, we're not talking about actually spending any more money than we have in years past. So there's a lot of numbers that go into those and transfers and everything else, but I think it's important for people to understand what the base is versus what we're coming forward with here. And again, trying to do more with less. So, I think I'm good with where we're at. So I appreciate everybody's effort on this.
That's a good point.
All right, so we'll ask Sean to go back and do a draft and put the numbers, Sean K, go back and put the numbers together, and then the board will have the final chance to take a look at it again on the 24th.
So we're gonna get the whole thing put back together.
And we'll get the resolutions that you'll actually vote on, so we'll have time. This gives Sean a week to put all the legal language together, and gives us a little time to have a conversation with the Board of Finance, and then we'll come back and be ready to make some final decision. Thank you. While we have time to go back to our, I forgot. So now that we're happy where we are, we have to cut more. So we do have to come in with a 1.5 town budget and a 0.5. I mean, 1.5 is what we came in with, a little higher. But we have to reduce to 1 and reduce to 0.5. So we do have to do that. I know the board expressed interest in doing that on the 24th and not before a conversation with the Board of Finance. So I just want to circle back and see if the board's still comfortable with doing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we all think this is the right number, right? So.
Right, yeah, I would say.
Okay. I just, because I know we were directed to do that, so, and we're not, our budget's not due until the 25th, so we do have time to do it. Just want the board not to forget that as hard as it is to do what we just did, it's gonna get a whole lot harder when we try to do even more cuts. So just wanted to put that on the table, okay.
You know what might, excuse me, Mary, if I can jump in, what might be nice for Sean K to prepare for us is if we needed to bring the budget down to 1.5 or 1 or 5, how much money that would end up, what deduction that would be. And then
Yeah,
we'll just
Sean
look at it and.
could do that right now for us. And then what we'll do is we'll put all of the previous items that we looked at reducing, we'll make sure that you have all those lists.
Okay.
And then if anyone needs any additional information, but obviously we've gone through a lot of cuts already, so there are a lot of tough choices, and others could even be harder, so we'll just revisit those, but it would be helpful to know, Sean, so where we are right now, what would that mean? How much additional reductions would we have to take to get to a 1 and a 0.5?
To get to a 1 and a 0.5? All right, so we have.
We're at 1.98. We're at actually 2.2.
Right.
It's basically 190,000 percentage, right?
1% is 180.
Pretty close. Yeah, exactly.
Close enough.
But, right, I mean, if you're basically looking for, from where we are now, we've got $185,000, you'd have to get down to 1%. And then about $275,000 drops you 1.5%. So from where you're basically at 2, to get to half is about $270,000.
Every 0.5% is about 92,000.
So 185 in the first reduction, and then 275 in the
It'd
second.
be an additional 90, or you can call it 270.
Does that help you?
It's daunting.
It's better not to know, right?
No, it's good to know. I don't have to like it, but it's a good perspective.
It is. And again, you know, I think we would be having a whole different conversation without the savings that the town and board had worked on. So I don't want to lose track of the tremendous effort that went into bringing those reductions in consolidated carriers. And the credit goes to our staff and the Board of Ed staff. Because I think you see how hard it is just to get to a 2.02, and taking, without those additional $100,000+, we would already be down to some of the difficult choices that we're seeing. Other questions? Okay, great. Then we also will have a discussion on the capital. We did make a couple of changes to capital that I want to bring to your attention. We took the comments from the last workshops, and staff took a look at some of the questions that the board had and some of the items that were not funded in this budget. And we asked them to come back with some recommendations based on what they heard during the budget workshops, but not violating the bottom line, because we are held to 7%, and which doesn't mean we have to fund it all, but does mean we have an obligation to not come in with more than what we can obviously fund. So I did want to review two projects that we reviewed and have made some modifications to. And yeah.
Real quick, what I handed out there, there are the two project sheets that either Rich or Jeff could touch on.
Yeah.
And then a new cover sheet that reflects the updated information in there. And also, I think Nancy requested, make sure we have the asterisks, although it's very small on this, but the new projects are not asterisks. It's hard to squeeze it all in here, but that's, if you look really closely, you'll see an asterisk next to this.
So when you're
Projects that weren't on last year.
and the reason that the asterisks are important, if projects are not on for more than 2 years, they have to be approved by a majority 4 as opposed to a supermajority, right? Is that the difference? So it doesn't mean it can't go forward, it just means that the vote is different. Jeff's here. Jeff, why don't you walk us through some of the changes, and then Tom Roy's here as well, because the changes basically affect engineering, Parks and Rec, and then Public Works. So we'll walk you through those changes. Go ahead, Jeff.
Sure. So the first project was the alternative energy efficiency project. There was some comment and some concerns about purchase of an electric car and charging station. That was taken out of the project.
We also found some grants that that the town can apply for that. So Tom did a great job identifying some grant opportunities. So rather than ask for funding in this budget, we're going to pursue those grant opportunities before we know what the options are.
So that was a reduction from $140,000 to $103,000 in that project. With that $37,000, there was some discussion in the Trails project.
Well, could I just stop you for a second, Jeff? So the only change to the alternate energy efficiency project was the deletion of the car and the charging station.
Correct.
No other changes. And maybe, Tom, do you want to speak to the other projects before we move on to the
Yeah, it's kind of a gathering of a couple different energy projects. Probably the first, which in some ways is the most exciting. With some changes that happened last year legislatively, municipalities are allowed to do what's called virtual net metering, which is a fancy way of saying we can put a very large solar array at any town property, whether it be someplace as beautiful as a public works facility, maybe the landfill, someplace out of sight with large array, which could then offset the electric use at this building. So no longer...
That's like a solar farm?
Exactly the same concept. And what this would do is allow us to do all of the engineering necessary to determine what would be the appropriate size, line up what would be the documents necessary to do what's called the power purchase agreement, where we would then have a third-party company come in and do a proposal where they would build and operate the solar farm. We would therefore then purchase our electricity through them at a reduced rate than what we're currently paying for. So the project, other than the initial engineering, would actually be no cost to the town in terms of the actual solar installation. We went through a similar process before the legislation was in effect, where each facility would had to have an amount of solar that would not exceed how much electricity it used. Going through that process, we didn't have any great candidates in terms of our building, but when we look at it with a virtual net metering, we're really set up with this design package to be in a great place to get this virtual net metering working for us.
So by doing that, there's no payback period, there's no
It would be-
upfront purchase of...
There's no upfront cost. What we would be doing is having an engineering firm do the groundwork for us, make sure that we were designing the right facility. We would then go out to the open market where a company that builds solar panels would install them. They would finance the whole project for us. We would then be in typically a 10, 15-year, or 20-year agreement with them to purchase our power from them at a predetermined rate, which could either be a fixed rate or a rate set to fluctuate with CL&P's rate.
Is the payback on the equipment built into the
Yes, it is.
payment? Because I've seen some of those with
Yeah.
others, and it's essentially like putting your mortgage payment in with your electric bill.
Right, and one of the things that we had talked about as a town is why shouldn't we just bond our own solar facility? And the reason is there's federal incentives and rebates that a private firm can capitalize on that we cannot.
Right.
So there's really...
But there still is a payback period on that. So at some point, you pay back your equipment.
That's exactly right. And at the end of the period, the equipment typically would belong to the town.
And how long does that take?
Most of the time, it's 15 or 20 years is the length, the standard length.
Based on your usage and all that.
Exactly.
And Tom, you would have the financing worked out before the town committed to
That's
doing it.
exactly
So
right.
you
With this-
know what the numbers were.
Right, and again, the advantage
Yeah.
of doing it this way, instead of going directly to somebody who does this type of thing, we have a third party that's independent. They do not have skin in the game in terms of they're not gonna make profit off of us and what size system we do. They're gonna give us the appropriate direction as to what's the right location in town, what is the right size of facility, and what are the appropriate rates that we should be paying. So we're hiring experts to guide us through this process. And even though we're talking, $38,000, it's very small compared to how much electricity we use over a 20-year period. The other thing that we would be asking for as part of this is to investigate a solar farm, or at least give us where residents can participate, which is currently an issue in the Connecticut state legislature.
And if there's excess capacity, like if we make more electricity than we use, what happens to that?
I would not recommend us ever building a facility that's bigger than all of the electricity the town would use. We could, this building alone in a typical month is over $4,000 for the bill. So I mean, when you put all of our town buildings together, we spend a lot of money on electricity. We're not gonna build a solar array large enough to offset all of our town usage.
I was just thinking about like the high school roof, it's, it's huge. Okay.
So that was the solar portion of it.
Right.
We had upgrades to the computer-controlled HVAC system at Eno. That's going to improve both occupant comfort and energy efficiency. The existing system is outdated. It's it's one of those things you just can't keep putting good money into bad. It's time to be upgraded. There's some minor modifications to the HVAC system at the library included in this package as well.
And the highway garage gas conversion, that currently there's not gas available at that highway garage, but with the work that you've been doing, there will be gas available, and this would allow you to tap into the lower cost.
Right. Right now, the highway facility is all run on propane. We have natural gas line hopefully coming down probably this coming spring. We need to convert our existing equipment over to run on natural gas rather than retrofit this old outdated equipment. This is to replace with appropriate new equipment.
Questions?
On the entrance. When you mentioned that, you said not going to fund this for this year? Is that?
No, this is, the electric car was removed.
Right.
And then we'll go to the next item that was changed as well.
But was there any, so that's the one with the bonding?
No, this is, it's up to this was being recommended as part of our bond package.
I'm sorry, but I thought you said you had grant money. Sorry, wrong.
Oh, for the energy car. For the electric
for the car.
We can apply for that.
Yeah.
And Tom has some other ways of financing the electric car that doesn't involve the town appropriating money.
Okay.
The charging station.
Yeah, and the charging station.
One car?
No car. Not included. Any other questions on this project? Okay. Great. Okay, Jeff, so we'll want to explain, there's only a change to one other project.
So the Terrifield connection and River Loop Road project, there was some discussion and some need to do additional trail work that was identified, one being maintenance work on the town forest for the Farmington River Trail piece between West Mountain Road and the town forest area. And also some discussion of modifying the master plans for Terrifield Park and Simsbury Meadow that was also incorporated into this project. We added the $37,000 that was freed up from the other project and put it into this project to cover those expenses, which is both design, study, and construction for those additional projects.
Thanks, Jeff. I just want to compliment Jeff and Rich Sawicki, who worked a lot since our last workshop to identify some of the needs that we couldn't fund in our budget. And one was certainly while we're down doing the Simsbury Loop, Rich and Jeff felt it made sense to take a look at updating the master plan that's down there and say, well, when we add the loop, what else is left to do down there? So that was rolled into this project. At the same time, we've gotten requests from Terrifield to take a look at upgrading Terrifield Park. That's not scheduled for funding, but Jerry did put that in for funding in outlying years. So what we wanted to do is, before we come back to the board and ask for funding of that project, take a look at how we're using Terrifield Park. You know, where there's some boat launch opportunities there, how are we using it? Rather than just go in and replace the pavilion, what other opportunities are there to use the park and involve the residents of Terrifield to ask them what they'd like to see. I know right now there's an old grill area that they said is not used there anymore, so rather than replacing that, we might want to just pull that out. So this, I think, to Jeff and Rich's credit, stepping back and saying, before we come in with a budget request for next year for Terrifield Park, we'll take a look at really how we want to use that park, so we have some time. So there's not a lot of money that will be used, but it might allow us to really just take a look at some engineering there. We did identify, and Jerry did identify, the town forest, West Mountain Road. The town owns that. Well, it's one of those old bike paths, trails, and Jerry can speak to this. That has come to the board previously. I think Mike and Cheryl were not on the board, but we've seen it previously to upgrade that. And one of the ideas was to wait again for the open space money to come in, and then we would clean it out. The roots really have made it unusable. You can't use it. Kids walk to school, and staff took a look at that area. You really can't use it as a walking path anymore, or a bike path. So there's not a lot of money that would take to get in there and clean out the roots. And so that was rolled into this project rather than waiting for the other project to be funded. So that's why we included that.
Mary, the part of the loop that goes through Strattonbrook, am I thinking of the wrong loop? Wasn't there some question of whether the state had to be involved in, because it's a state park?
So this is really, and Jerry could probably, why don't you, Jerry, walk through exactly where that short
the piece
trail.
actually, the piece that you're referring to actually was the first rail trail conversion in town. It is, my understanding, it is on a state, state-owned or rail right-of-way, but it is under the town's jurisdiction. We would certainly, we're responsible for the maintenance of it. As Mary said, there's a lot of very mature, pines right along there that, the root intrusion has made it virtually, impassable. So we went out, Rich Sawicki and I went, Tom Roy went and looked at it to try and see what the best approach would be. And, we feel that we could, make the surface repairs without, damaging the trees, because they are, they're right on, right on the path, and if we were, to, cut a lot of those roots, it would jeopardize, the trees, no question. So, again, it was the first rail trail conversion, this goes back to the mid-70s, one of the first in the state, actually, and so yeah, this is really just, to get it back to where it is passable. A lot of foot traffic through there, kids going to school, a lot of, going from West Mountain down, it does get heavy use. So.
I just didn't know if it was part of the state park.
It's not.
It's not. The one down further, you're right, down in Strattonbrook too, yeah.
I think I was thinking of it.
This is the one from the baseball field to West Mountain.
Right, this is from Town Forest Park up to West Mountain.
It's actually, what's the total? segment.
Less than a mile.
Less than a mile.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
about 2,500 feet.
Behind Madison?
Yes.
Right, right adjacent to there.
I'm trying to place where we're talking about.
And this
And
would
the
not
reason-
be to pave it, this would be to bring it back to a very.
This doesn't,
gravel
right,
trail.
this just cleans it.
This is just gravel, just, you know, like I said, it would not be paved,
No,
like, you know.
no, this is just cleaning the roots and really clearing it. I think it's come up as a priority because of the walk to school programs that have become popular. And Tooten has really done a great job in getting their kids out and walking to school. And when some of us walked that last year during the path, during the walk to school day, it's really, you couldn't walk it without tripping over and it's growing. So it was a priority for us last year. We didn't get the open space funding. It's back before you because if we're going to really just, for a little bit of money, you can make a big impact in cleaning up some of those trails, so we included it in this project. Sean?
Do we have the number last year for this Terrafill connection? The reason I ask is because what's the difference between this year and last year? Because I seem to remember like 575 is the number. And I could be completely pulling that out of midair, but, you know, all of a sudden we're...
This is not to build it. Well, it's it's construction, yeah, it's construction, but we aren't ready to go on that yet.
No, it was in last year's budget. I believe it was escalated somewhat, the number, because, you know, the cost frankly probably increased slightly
So
since
that's
last
usually
year.
how capital improvements go around here too.
Right, I think it moved around. I think the out year was changed too, and I don't recall exactly what year it was in.
Yeah, and Rich is, really needs to come back to the board once we have identified the way the greenway goes changing a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
in terms of-
this whole item, I mean, every year it's on the capital plan, it
It is.
evolves a little bit, and I get that, because I mean, there's evolving needs for it, but it's just, we've been trying to connect the Terrafill
We
folks
have,
forever.
and there's grant programs involved too, so we're trying to
Right.
offset against that too.
And, you know, all of a sudden, I mean, I don't have any issue with this year, but you look at the 17 year and you start going, all right, where did $1.3 million come from? You know, and it's like, that's, you know, that's just, I want to make sure, you know, we're still able to charge down the path and we don't do some of it, and for some reason something happens and we don't do all of it. It's, we've got to continue to commit to this. It's just, I don't know, again, my memory's not perfect on this, but it seems like it's escalated significantly from last year.
Yeah, and, no, good point. And the purpose of tonight was not to have the board take action, just to.
No, I understand.
You know, so I think it's important that we have, we'll have a full presentation on the 24th of all the capital projects, and at that time, we'll have Rich give you a status of the East Coast Greenway, where we are, and on all those projects.
We ought to just change this to trails, period.
Yeah. Good suggestion.
There's so many different trails
It
coming
is,
into it every
it
year.
is. So maybe we could take a look at
We could
that,
check it,
Jeff,
sure.
and change it to.
Greenway.
But as you see, you know, there's a commitment, once you build something, you know, you've got to
Keep
take care of
going.
it.
I get it.
So we're aware of that.
Yep.
So these two changes complete the capital project that we will review. And we'll also have a presentation from the Board of Ed on the 24th as well, and come forward with their project. So the process will be that, if anyone has any questions on the capital plan, if anyone has additional information, we'll have a full presentation on the 24th, and then we'll be open to discussion. All of our budgets and capital plan will then go to the Board of Finance, and then we have a public hearing as well at the Board of Finance level. So the public will have plenty of opportunity, in addition to our meetings, to comment on the budgets as well.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that the meeting that we typically have at the high school?
Yes,
The public hearing?
yes. I think it's April.
West Simsbury, mountain-based
Can
attack.
we get, with this review again of the trails, just for the public and for our help from Matt, as they go through this, just
Yes.
as we're talking about it, it'd be easy to follow. And
Yeah, we'll have that for a presentation
Yeah.
on the 24th as well.
because I think that this Terrible Connection is the one that ultimately is the bridge that they're all excited about doing down the road at some point. And it's got a lot of potential.
Yeah, I think that Rich is still working with the Terriffill residents to identify exactly where the trail would be. Our last discussions, there were a couple of different options, and that's where we are. We haven't really, the Board of Selectmen has never voted on a particular location, so we will still have to do that. Exactly, but we'll have Rich bring the maps so you can see the options and the alternatives. So this is a special meeting, and the only thing we can talk about is budgets. And we do have another special meeting of the board at 6:30, so if there's any additional information on the budgets, We have 5 minutes to.
Speak now, or.
Sean, just to backtrack to our last meeting a little, on the capital non-reoccurring, I think we had made a change in there somewhere. Do you have a new sheet for us on
That's just
the radar signs? So that's all updated in here from what we talked about?
A new sheet on, a backup sheet on the signs? Jeff,
I have one, I can.
No, I
make
didn't
some
just make
copies.
sure.
No, they just want to make sure it's included in the new
it is
count.
included in that number at the bottom of that
Oh, there it is.
form, yeah.
Yep. Okay, because I know we changed the amount.
It's not on the
I
old
was still
one.
looking back at my
kind
other
of
one.
switched to the new one here.
Yeah.
But,
And that's
Gotcha.
the only change that was made to capital non-recurring.
Okay,
So
'cause I just wanted to make
unless the board
sure.
wants to make additional changes, that was the final, this reflects the final changes that we had a consensus on at our last workshop.
Yeah, no, I,
So take a look at that again, just to make sure everybody's comfortable with that, because that will be part of our budget vote on the 24th. And so what we'll do tonight is, we have a consensus of where the board wants to go. We'll plug those new numbers into the budget. We'll put that budget up on the website. We'll have a chance for the board to review that. We'll get the additional presentation on the 24th, and then we'll be ready to make some decisions. We'll have feedback back from the Board of Finance as well, so we'll have all the information that we need to take action on the 24th. Good?
okay.
All right, there being no further business to come before the board for the special meeting, we need a motion to adjourn.
Move that.
Second. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. We'll stand in recess for 5 minutes and we'll come back down our